Trends being broadcast to you from the very, very, very sunny Southern California into 32 million homes and counting. We are having the hottest summer ever. I'm not even kidding. I'm Dr. Gina. You are watching History as we launch the world's first social television network. Check u2america.com for your local listings. Now, trending today, story of a bank robber in Michigan who was busted. But some people are saying that he should only get a slap on the wrist because he was stealing money to pay for his daughter's chemotherapy. And that's why our poll question today asks this: how should the Michigan bank robber be treated who was stealing money to pay for his daughter's chemotherapy? Should they let him go? Should they lock him away, or just go easy on him? Vote in that poll right now, u2america.com, or use the U2 America app, available now for Apple and Android devices. Download it now if you don't have it already. Now, you've had a lot to say about this topic on social media. Jamie Clements commented, "Robbery's robbery. If he needed money, he could have asked." Greg Petty said this: "Sad situation, but no, criminals deserve to be held accountable." I wonder if we broke this survey down along party lines, if it would go a little bit differently, don't you? Zell Mitzel commented, "He never heard of GoFundMe? What about Obamacare? I thought everyone's covered now. Shouldn't the shoplifter stealing food get should the shoplifter stealing food get different treatment? I say no to both. Do the crime, do the time." Or hardcore in this crowd, I guess. Dave Moore said this: "Put yourself in his shoes. I would do anything for my son." Yeah, but somebody mentioned GoFundMe. Not a bad idea. There are other options. Go to churches, things like that. All right, WJ Billy LaFleur said, "Did he try all available resources prior? Isn't this the guy who handed a teller a note apologizing before robbing them? If so, yep, gotta do what you gotta do for your children, especially if they have that evil cancer. People do worse and go free. Probation and restitution," he said. Thanks for those comments, guys, and we will get to more of them a little bit later on. But will this bank robber's motivation to commit this crime help the man in court? Here to discuss is former prosecutor and criminal defense attorney Mark Davis. Mark, welcome to America Trends.
Hello, Dr. Gina. How are you?
Good, thank you. Now, Mark, this is a heartbreaking story. There's no question. I just lost my mom to cancer, so I have all the sympathy in the world. But will that count in the courtroom? That's our question tonight.
It will count. There are circumstances in mitigation that the criminal defense attorney will be focusing on. At the end of the day, the defense attorney doesn't even want to talk about the crime. He wants to only talk about the fact that the child, him or herself, is sick. He needed it. It was a desperate situation. And he understands that this gentleman will certainly be punished, but he's just going to try to mitigate the damage the best that he can. And I've been on both sides of it, where I've been a prosecutor, and at the end of the day, you can't excuse, regardless of whatever the excuse is, whether it's a good reason or not. You simply can't excuse it. It's a crime.
It is a crime, and I guess for me, I wonder: does the courtroom, does the judge consider the fact that this could lead to other crimes where people say, "Hey, I'm robbing a bank because I was going to give this money to my friend who has cancer," or, I mean, we can all come up, everybody's life is touched by some sob story, whatever that is. So if we start taking into consideration the individual sob stories, does it not sort of preclude the whole purpose of the criminal justice system from the beginning, which should be to prevent the next crime, right, in a way?
Absolutely. The courts are always concerned about going down a slippery slope, and whatever decision they make having some impact on the next individual. I certainly would love for someone to pay my mortgage this month, and it's been a slow month. And certainly, if I decided to go rob a 7-Eleven for the opportunity to keep my wife and my kids in our home, you know what? I don't think that that's going to be met with much kindness. There's an acronym I use, and I hope it's okay for your show. I use the acronym GAM. That means he was a grown-ass man, and he knew going in. I use that for a lot of things. Say, look, you're a grown-ass man. You know that there are certain responsibilities that you just have to live up to. He took the chance. He got caught, and now he's got to live up to whatever it was that's going to happen to him. And so, at the end of the day, everyone is sympathetic to his plight. And certainly, if he doesn't have a record, if this is his only conviction, if he's tried so many other things, which the defense attorney will focus upon, if he's gives them a litany of things that this guy has tried, then I think at the end of the day that they may go lighter on him than someone who is just your general run-of-the-mill, I'm trying to make money for me type bank robber.
Okay, in a crime like this, is it going to make a difference if a gun had been used in this robbery?
Absolutely, absolutely, especially here in California, where you have the 10-20 life rules where, you know, if you bring a gun, it's 10 years. If you fire it, it's 20 years. And if someone gets hurt, it's life. And so what I read of the story is that he said that that he had a gun. Mm-hmm. Apparently he didn't really show it, and I don't know if he had it or not, but even to mention the idea that you have a gun, it ups the ante a great deal, because you don't know who's seeing that. You don't know if that person themselves are armed. That potentially puts him at risk at that point of someone believing that he's armed, potentially firing at him and either hurting him or someone else that might be an ancillary victim. And
but Mark, juries can be so unpredictable too. Could they just decide to find him not guilty if they wanted to and not even consider those sorts of things because there is such a compassion component here?
Yeah, they could. I mean, that would be jury nullification. At the end of the day, I don't think there's any question from what I've read that he is guilty of a robbery. I don't think he's even denying that. The issue is what's going to be his punishment, what should be the punishment, and you know, how much sympathy are we going to give him? But that's a punishment aspect. It's not whether this is actually a crime. I don't think there's any question that it's a crime. I mean, if you think about it, this is Breaking Bad. I mean, I don't know if you watched that show. It was one of my favorite shows. But in that show, the guy thought he had cancer. He was dying. He had a pregnant wife and a disabled child, mm-hmm. and he wanted to leave them with a legacy. And they weren't going to be able to do that on his salary as a chemistry teacher. And so he went to, you know, selling crystal meth and to leave them a legacy. And all of a sudden, you know, I felt for him at the beginning of the show, but by the end of it, you start to realize that it got good to him. Now, it's a different circumstance, but the original circumstance, I think, is almost right on point with what this gentleman.
Is there any precedent for cases like this? And if so, how did those turn out?
Well, precedent in that there are people who do things out of need. And certainly the law and the rules of court, they account for that. They look to see, did you have an absolute need for this? Mm-hmm. Do you have a history? Do you have, how sophisticated was this crime? What were the facts and circumstances? Did you use a gun? Did you go out of your way not to harm people? All of these things are things that get looked at as circumstances in mitigation. There are other factors that they look at that might be circumstances in aggravation. How sophisticated was it? Did you make a plan? Did you have a note? Did you have a getaway driver? All of these things get looked at in the same light. But with regard to whether it's a crime or not, I don't think that that's really open for debate.
I think people need to look to the charitability of society instead of, you know, going and committing crimes, and I think we need to encourage that at every turn. Mark Davis, thank you so much for being with us. Up next, we discuss the lockdown on the Mississippi State University campus. But first, take a look at one of these top trending videos that we don't have time for in this moment. We're going to be back with more America Trends right after this.